episode 12.
Episode 12.
Welcome,
Episode 12.
Show them your cute mug.
I
The other
know.
side
I
is so
love my
cute.
mug.
This is so cute.
This
We
is an
finally got
amazing
mugs
mug.
for our legends.
Finally,
my
one's
gosh.
pink.
Love it.
Eventually, we might get one.
Hopefully.
You should.
Although
You're
something's
legends.
nice about the legends being better and bigger than
Oh,
That is true.
realistic.
That
They
is
are way
true.
better than
Right,
that.
right, exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
probably good that we're just black and
I
small.
don't
Maybe
know.
are
someday I'll interview you
Yeah.
and you can
And
interview
then
me.
there
and
you
we'll
go.
get
And you
mugs.
both get pink mugs.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Until then, we should probably stay
Right.
with our little ones and let our
Yeah,
legends
that's
have the
true.
big thing.
I'm okay with that, actually. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so
I love it.
we have our next legend, Kim Wygle. All things Kim Wygle. She's been lots of different things. You've been in HR. You've been in little product stuff with your husband. You've worked without your husband. You've worked with your husband. And now you have this wonderful Flourish Executive Women's Retreat. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So we're very glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So-
This is awesome.
We are, as you know, talking about the Shunammite Woman.
Yes.
And so we are talking about perseverance with her and what that looks like. So we're going to just dig right in and sort of
Right.
hear a little bit of your story and tell us your story of perseverance.
Gosh.
Welcome.
Thank
Yes,
you.
exactly.
I didn't have another person here. It's usually just the two of us, and it gets like mad.
I know, we,
Now
yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
we have another friend.
I love it. Oh my gosh, perseverance. Like that is
Yes.
such a gosh, that's just a word for all of us as Jesus followers. Like
Mhm.
it's all about staying in the game with Jesus. And if you recently I was stressed about something, shocker. 3 on the Enneagram, very worried
I was just going to say,
about
Kim
working
sort of ranks in there with
working
that
on many
intensity thing
Yeah.
with us.
many times. And the Lord was just so sweet to remind me, Kim, it's not about fruitfulness, it's about faithfulness. And
Do you know that's my screensaver?
I did not know that.
Yes, it's
but
my
I love
screensaver.
And
My
it's-
job is faithfulness.
That's
the
right.
Lord's job is
it.
fruitfulness.
He brings the fruit. Yeah. And with
We just that fits with our
I was
theme
gonna
about
say,
the
I went back
seed.
to we just finished the last series on Lydia and management. And we listened to a Dr. Miles Monroe's sermon, and he said it, so we can't take credit, but he said, God puts a seed in each of us, and then his first commandment is for us to be fruitful. He said, don't be seedful, but you need to be fruitful. And so we went through this whole conversation
Yeah.
of how every single person has a seed in them,
Right.
and your job is to take that seed and manage it and make it
And
fruitful.
multiply it and be
And
fruitful.
so, and now we can add, don't be seedful, be fruitful and faithful.
Right.
Yeah,
Faithful
exactly.
and fruitful.
Faithful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like persevering most of the time, the seed isn't sprouting the way I would like it to.
Or fast enough.
Or fast enough, or the way I thought it would,
Yeah.
or really my plan. So it's with
Or
the
my leaves are
perseverance.
dead.
Right. I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh,
killed
I got
it.
blind.
Mine
What's
are
going
usually
on?
yellow because I overwater them.
Right.
Which
Exactly.
again talks to the intensity level
Right.
of grow.
That's right.
Water on
How
it.
have you not produced
Right.
a cucumber yet?
That's
I planted
right.
you yesterday.
That's exactly.
Have I told
Yeah.
you about our avocado tree?
You have an avocado tree?
No.
Oh.
It's supposed to be an avocado. We've had it for 6
It's
years.
never bloomed.
I walk by that tree every day and I say, "Good morning, avocado tree," because
Just
I
to
don't think it
remind it
knows
who
it's
it
an
is.
avocado tree. Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
terrible.
I want to be a gardener. I say it
Yeah.
all the time.
Anyway,
But I do.
Anyway.
I get confused sometimes because it really isn't. My job is to be faithful and not fruitful, but
Yeah.
I sometimes think I can bring the fruit,
Mhm.
and that's where my stress level comes in, and that's where my
Yeah.
like God is very clear, and Jesus is like, no, no, no.
Our faith,
John 15, like,
he will be fruitful.
and you can bring no thing to the table.
Mhm.
Like I'm giving you the
Right.
seed, but I'm gonna bring.
Mhm.
I'm the gardener, and I'm actually the one. If you just abide with me, which means stay close, and I want to get into do mode. And sometimes that is what you're supposed to do, but that's not going to bring the fruit. And I get a little confused sometimes on all of
Yes.
that, being personality like that. So yeah, so perseverance for me is really staying in the game with Jesus and understanding that his timing is not my timing, and it's not going to go the way I think it should. So
Right.
as I look back, like I never intended to own a retreat company.
Right.
Like I started 1,000 years ago as a pastor's wife, and I thought that was going to be my life. I thought I would be a pastor's wife for all my days, and did not work out that way. And finding yourself in a whole new, I would tell people, like, I've stepped off of Earth and now I'm on Pluto and I don't know anything anymore because this is what I thought the Lord would do. And why wouldn't he bless a pastor's wife and a church, blah, blah, blah. So I think perseverance is all about getting okay with knowing you don't know, but you trust God does know. And you stay with Jesus, just abide, and he will bring the fruit and do the rest. So pastor's wife, I had a fantastic, fun career in HR for many, many years.
I don't know if I would ever associate fun with HR.
Well,
Like that's just not like, I don't be like, woohoo, HR, fun. That's crazy that you hear it. Like that's where you went to. Like I had this great opportunity.
I just believe that obviously God created work, and work can be a holy and high calling when the right people are in the right place doing things that grow them and pay their mortgages and develop. Like I just see it as it's a sacred thing to go to work.
Right.
And even just in staffing, which was part of my HR world, to make the match between your culture and what you need and that person who's looking for that. It's amazing. And it's hard because sometimes it doesn't work, but
we talk like that, a chief of staff role, right?
Like
Is
that
sort of
gets
what
me excited when I can get my person in the right position.
Right.
So
that's when I say HR, that's kind of the placement.
Like,
you probably think
legal and like I call HR when somebody's,
paychecks.
right.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And that's all it too. But yeah, there's the staffing component of it too, which is great. So that was a lot of fun, and I loved that career. But after 15 years, I was tired, and I just knew God was closing that season. It was ready for another season. And my sweet husband, as you mentioned, said, "Why don't you come sell for me?" And I'm like, really?
fun.
That might do interesting. Like I can actually have a product that stays where I tell it to stay and doesn't run like versus working with people. So I did that, and we had a great run. We had a great time. He'd been in the business 20 years. He taught me the business, and creative promotional products are amazing because they get your message out to your prospects and your clients. And I love that because you're helping people accomplish what they're supposed to be doing and what they
Thank
want
you
to
for
take
my
home.
gift bag, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
You know what my favorite thing is?
Tell me.
The little sticky that says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
That you put on your
Saturday,
thing.
Sunday. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've showed you.
See? Yeah, and to me, like promotional products, I mean, my husband does more than that. We do marketing solutions of every type, but I love it because it's something that helps someone. It's something that you need. It's something that you're going to use. It's something that's going to help you in your business. So it was a great run to do that with him. Like I said, he was gracious enough to teach me the business, and we were doing great.
Not the pastor.
Not
we
the
should
pastor.
probably say
Okay,
that.
yeah. So the pastor decided to leave the ministry and leave the marriage.
In that order? I don't know that. I've
leave the
thrown that
ministry,
out there. Sorry.
leave the marriage in that order, and married my dear friend, who was also going to the church. Okay. So it was just a Jerry Springer scene. It was great. Who doesn't want to live that out in front of everyone you know?
Church. Right. Right.
So so actually God was so sweet and married Blair, who had never been married before.
Okay.
What a blessing that was. And
He's so sweet.
we got married at 38. And again, that is, I don't know what you're doing here, God. What are you doing? What's happening? But I'm with you. That's all I know. Like that's the perseverance of like, I could either walk the other direction and say, God, I'm done here. I was doing what you called me to do. I married who you called me to marry. Or I could say, I don't know what you're doing, but I also know it's a sin-sick, broken world here, so I'm not immune from that. So I'm just going to trust you're going to work all this out. And I tell people I would go through everything again to have the life I have now. And it's not that it's perfect, but it's that God has done such incredible, amazing things in his faithfulness, not really as much as mine. So he
Sidetrack. We were just talking a couple episodes back about, can you have a testimony
Yes.
without a tragedy?
Right.
Because a lot of times you hear Christian people get to share their testimony and it's always a tragedy, but God, which is amazing.
Right.
But we were having the discussion about, I think sometimes we as Christians lean into the tragedy too much and forget the goodness that even if something bad may happen, which we all could go to a point in our life where I'm like, this sucks.
For sure.
You know,
Terrible.
boy, my husband left me, or
Yeah.
you know, my whatever. I mean, we have those moments, but it feels like in Christendom, to me, a lot, we focus on those tragedies, but God, we say it, but it's like the story has to have the tragedy in it. Which I just want to reflect back because we said it, and the way you're telling the story, there was clearly a tragedy in that. but that's not what you're telling us. Like,
Yeah.
that was a blip in the, that sucked, but.
And I do it all over again.
Right. So
I mean,
that's
right.
where there
Yeah.
was a tragedy and there was a little bit of the story, but you're telling a story of just God's goodness and hope instead of focusing on.
That does
the
take time
tragedy.
and maturity too. I think, like, to younger women, I would say
Sure.
it might feel like a tragedy right this second,
Sure.
but
Sure.
it does grow into something. When you look in the rearview mirror, like I have the same
Right.
feeling. I
Yeah.
mean, my tragedy, I would do that all over again to be where I am today. I mean, so
But even our
It's-
tragedies,
my
in
tragedy is not a
comparison
tragedy.
to other
Right.
people's
For sure.
tragedies, like it's hard
Absolutely.
to stand up there and be like, I
Right.
have this tragedy, and every time somebody says that, I want to go, but have you watched the news?
Right.
Or
Right.
So
met
compared to
Johnny
what?
or Susie?
Compared to
Your
who?
tragedy, like let's not
Oh, for sure.
lean
Right.
into that because at the end of the
sure.
day, but
Yeah.
God,
Right.
God is so
Right.
good.
Yeah.
So I just love the way that you're telling your story because there was this blip, for lack of a better word, but you're not focusing on that.
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
defining.
Really, it's and that is a great word because I think a lot of people get defined by that thing that happened or what, and it's really, but God is good because He's like, no, you belong to me. You're not who you're married to. You're not the title on your business card. Like, and it's a good reminder. And when you do find yourself in a heap on the floor, which is what happens when your heart's shattered, it is just. Jesus is right there to comfort you and say, I know this is a sin-sick, broken world. This is not the way I designed things to work. However, it's okay. I've got you. And I did get into counseling. Anytime a marriage ends, it's never 100%, 0%. You have to own your part.
Yeah.
And I do think that, but it's a way of looking at it because the truth of the matter is there's going to be many times where something devastating will happen and it's still hard, but it gets a little easier the longer you walk with Jesus in that. And part of that is just the human nature. Part of that is the enemy coming against what God is trying to work. So I think that's kind of
I
part
love
of it.
that the Shunammite woman is like, she says, all is well. Like,
That's what I love.
and I'm like,
Son died. I'm not even talking about it.
right,
Like,
she doesn't even use the words. I mean, it's just all, and I think I have to change the way.
Right.
So we talk about life and death
Because
is in the
it
power
is
of the
well.
tongue.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it is well. I have a relationship with the Lord. Like, it is, my soul is well.
Right.
And we don't do that. I mean, it's way too easy to walk in and, oh my God. I mean, how many times have we sat here and gone,
I know.
"Oh, I had a crappy day. We're going to have margaritas and
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
For sure. Yeah.
Like, we do it
And
all the time.
I love for her, it was so amazing. Her circumstances were of no consequence to her.
Right.
I mean, she just blew past them. Like when her husband
Right.
says what's going on, she's like, all is well.
All is well.
Servant, all is well. Because she knew, what is it going to help me? And this is where I get convicted. When it's not well, and my circumstances, who am I calling?
right.
Who am I turning to? What am I turning to? Instead of just saying, I got to get to the Lord.
Yeah.
I got to tell him, and I mean, brutally honest, I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm upset, but he's the only one who can change things, who can comfort me. So I love her just single-minded focus to know
Jesus.
it is
I
all
just
well
gotta get to Jesus.
because
I
Jesus
just have to get there.
isn't,
Right.
I just got to get to him. And and I love this too, like I would have suggested what I'd like Jesus to do and how I'd like him to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, she
Lord.
doesn't even do
Right.
that.
This
She
is-
rolls
I
in.
have some ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, she just said, she's there.
Yeah.
She's literally holding on to the ankles of Elisha.
But she was so convicted that her husband didn't even know all
That's
wasn't
what's me.
well.
He didn't even know.
Right? Like,
Right.
I mean, that
know.
kind of conviction
calmness.
is just,
Yeah.
like, that is such an inner peace
For sure.
that that people around you don't know you're lying,
Well,
right?
and
Right.
nowadays with social media, I mean, I hate to be the one that jumps on the bandwagon. It's almost like our difficulties get us attention.
Yeah.
I mean, as the teacher, you
sure.
always had the kid in the classroom that the negative attention. It was still
Absolutely.
attention.
Still
He's
attention.
doing it for attention.
Right.
And how many times do I blow into a day complaining because it's like, oh, poor Tammy, she's had it.
Yeah.
It's attention seeking at its core, which that's what I loved about the shoot. She needed their
that at all.
attention.
Yeah.
She just needed Jesus' attention,
Right.
and that was enough. And that, for me, was convicting, because how many times do I complain to my husband or complain to my kids or make a scene about, I worked this hard and I did this?
Right.
And it's for attention at the core, whereas Jesus saw me do that, and Jesus saw the morning of chaos.
Right.
And he recognized it, and that's all I need. I don't need the rest of the world to know that the morning was chaotic. Jesus knows, and he's enough. And that's, to me, what was so convicting to her, was that she didn't need that attention. She just needed Jesus.
She knew
Well,
what
and it brings
who
us
she needed.
the commonality,
Right.
like that we're connecting over, which I think is why we do it, right? You blow in here and you're like, oh my God, right here, and mine in the car. And I'm like, oh, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And so we have a commonality over it. And yet we have a commonality over Jesus, and we don't
blow in
say
talking
that
about Jesus.
Right?
Oh,
We don't.
right.
Right. I had this miracle happened today.
Right.
Right.
Gosh,
You know, so
And we have to be authentic
For
with
sure.
how we feel.
For sure.
However, you're exactly right. That perspective, that's the game changer. That's the ballgame. I liken her to. There's some people who can be a thermometer. They're going to, it's like your heart. Feelings are good. They're indicators. They're not dictators. A thermometer can tell you what the temperature is. It can't change the temperature. So we want to be a thermostat, where we can actually change the temperature. She's a thermostat.
Right.
She realizes, listen, I can reflect the chaos and the horrific situation
Yes.
going on, and I can get my husband all lined up, or I can just seek to adjust the situation. I don't even know how to adjust it, but I know who does. So I love that. Sometimes when I get a little spun up, I'm like, okay, am I a thermometer reflecting and spewing out my temp inside, or am I a thermostat and I'm going to adjust and control because I'm going to go to the Lord and ask him, all right, how are we going to work this here? This has happened. What's that next step?
That's good.
And
So
she stays
thermostat.
constant.
she's consistent.
She
She's
stays
steady.
Constant. Like
Yeah.
I think about, he's had other stuff like this happened before. When we talked about management, God's going to bless what you do well, right? And she clearly, there were littler moments before the fact that, her son passed away. Well, he did, but you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, there were other moments that she had to have built on.
Oh, for sure.
And we're only getting the obviously part of the story.
In the middle of the tragedy that she was experiencing, she had built on
She had built on
years
this
of
is
a
how I
relationship
know.
with
Correct.
Jesus.
This
to
is
be
how I know to go to the
confident.
Lord. This is how I know to go to the Lord. This is
And the words I looked up, like we worked with her when we studied her, of generous and content. Well, she's generous because she's all in for the Lord, builds the house inside of her house. So but then content, when she's asked, what can I do for you? Her answer is nothing.
I know, right?
Like, I think all of that preceded.
Yes.
That's why she's a thermostat, because she's content in who she is, who God's made her to be, and what
would I
God's blessed her
possibly
with.
ask for? I mean,
Right.
I think
and he's like, and it could have been anything, because
Yes.
he's like, do you want something from the king?
Right.
Or do you want something from the commander of the army? Like, these are heavy hitters.
Right.
Right.
And I love that she said, what are you?
I'm good.
No,
I'm content.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I
What
think
else
that
could I
has a
ask
lot
for?
to do with
That hurts.
how she
got there.
got there. She learned to be content in her circumstances with the Lord.
What Enneagram do you think she is?
Oh,
Like, thinking
Oh,
of that.
gosh.
Like, we get to heaven and she shows up at the pearly gates. What do you think her personality would be like? Think
like
she's
mine.
quiet?
No.
I think she is me. Humble.
Wisdom.
She could be an 8. She's a boss.
Yeah.
She's a boss. Like,
She's maybe notable, it says. I mean, so there was something.
Right.
an 8.
Right.
She was formidable in some regard.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
she had the respect of her community for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And she had the respect of her husband. I think
I love that
if
too.
my husband, if I said we're building a room over here for the man of God, he'd be like,
Really?
yeah,
Right.
no man of God is going to be staying here, right? I mean, and I don't mean that against him. It was just like
He respected her.
There is so much respect there
No question.
that's again like a process. You don't just snap your fingers and have that kind of respect.
For sure. And if you're not grounded in the word, have some girlfriends that can say, hey,
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm a safe place. However, let's talk about
Could
what's
you
really
imagine
real.
being the Shumanite's friend?
No.
right?
That would suck. Like every day you'd be like, I'm not as good as you.
No.
You're so
is how we do
content
with
and you're
Kim.
so happy. I need a new friend.
That's why she's a legend.
That is not true.
Because you make me feel like crap. So.
Because I'll tell you, I will bet she did have friends that shot her straight and were right there. Because, we get to see the picture of her not focusing on her circumstances, but it wasn't always that way.
No, she did not get there by herself.
Right. So
Right.
maybe even her husband was the one at some point to say, woman, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
he
I love
does
you
say, like, where are you going? It's not the Sabbath. Like, why are you going?
Yeah, he's
there?
totally confused.
Right?
He's like,
normally you're resting
So-
this day, and now you got
now you got to go. And I
pitch
see
in your
some
giddy up. So
Yeah.
what's
intensity.
happening?
What's happening here? Yeah.
So I think that you're probably right. There were people all around her that were pouring into, the story that we get.
yeah,
we just get
absolutely.
listening.
Yeah.
And I love she wasn't led by her emotions, so she did have respect. So when she said to her husband, all is well, even if he didn't fully believe it, he received it. Like, I think that's one of the benefits of
Yes.
when you persevere, when you hang with the Lord through thick and thin. It's one of those things that you become known for, not a perfect life and an easy life, but a faithful life. And that's going to mean information and situations that can be really hard, really great, but also really hard. And I think
people
understanding
went to
that.
her for that too.
Oh, for sure.
Right. I think that's what the wisdom and the being respected in the community and being respected by her spouse had. People went to her for that,
Absolutely.
which is,
Yeah.
when you think about our mat carrier people,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, she had to be carrying people's mats.
For sure. And the reason she could do that is because she knew where the source was. She knew, I don't know, but I'll pray about it.
Right.
Right? I mean, I'll go to the Lord. We'll go to the Lord together. Let's see what he says. I don't know. That's great.
Yeah.
So-
And she landed there.
For sure.
So tell us,
I was gonna say,
speaking
take us
of
back.
how
Oh, sorry, Grace.
you got,
Tell us about you.
so you were working,
I was working with my
Blair.
husband, Blair. It was awesome. It was great. We were going to Beach Church. My husband was born and raised Catholic. And when we got married, we thought we were going to be he was Catholic, so we thought we were going to be in the Catholic Church. And I was very excited because I thought I was going to be the mole in the Catholic Church. And I had it all figured out. I was going to teach Bible studies. I actually loved the priest there. But anyway, long story short, annulments had to happen because I've been married before and blah, blah. Oh my gosh. I was so excited. Y'all have no idea. And then God had other plans, shocker. And we ended up, annulment was a little wonky and went crazy, a little sideways. And my husband said, I don't believe God wants us here. I think he wants us in another church, which was a huge step of faith for him after that being there for 38 years. Yeah. We ended up landed up at Beach Church, which was awesome. It was super great, super awesome. And we just loved it there. And then started this, I was on a leadership team, which was so fun for me, with Pastor Jerry and a couple others.
But you were still working with Blair.
I was still working with Blair. Yeah.
Okay.
Working with Blair.
Yeah.
And
so you were volunteering.
I was volunteering. It was great. We were talking about how do we reach the next generation here. We've got our traditional service and our, contemporary service, and how are we going to reach a lot of these incoming families that have young kids but maybe no heritage of faith or a bad experience with the church. How is this even relevant?
Right.
So we talked about what would that look like, and thought about, let's try a service that would reach that group. And we've got this student pastor that's an incredible communicator who then became an executive pastor at Beach. And so we just launched 1122 service thinking that, wow, this will be a great opportunity to reach that demographic. So at the end of the day, we were just having a ball with that. I mean, God was showing up and just blowing our minds. The people he was bringing, and it was just amazing. And we all loved where we were. We loved our traditional people, our contemporary people. Like, it was just one big, huge, amazing family. But then it became very apparent, and Pastor Jerry said, I think you guys should launch. And that was never our intention. So long story short, we launched. First service was September 23rd, 2012. It was an amazing opportunity. We had no money. People think it was such a cool thing to have, no carpet on our floors, and all the tin, the wood. Well, we dumpster dove, and we had no money for carpet. We had nothing. So so it was just kind of fun to be a part of all that. And Blair and I just loved it, and loved serving there, loved worshiping there, loved watching the Lord just show up and blow up. I mean, it is all the Lord. It was not this strategic plan that was buttoned up.
You can't miss miracles.
That is not. It was had Jesus all over it. So it was amazing, and then we were just happy doing that. We were working, we were volunteering, and then the Lord's like, hey, Pastor Britt, actually, hey, would you like to come work here? And I thought, he was my pastor, so of course I said yes. I'll pray about it because you're my pastor. But my answer in my heart is like, been there, done that with the church. Didn't end so well. Really don't want to do that again.
Right. To keep this husband.
Right. Exactly.
He's gonna come in with me.
Number 2, stay.
Let's do that. So I prayed about it, and I'll never forget. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go to Blair and say, hey, so by the way, I know we've built this company together and blah blah blah. And he was very gracious, and he said, if that's what the Lord would have us do, then that's what we'll do, and he will take care of everything else. And he did, and he has, and it was just an honor to get to serve on that team and I came in as a spiritual formation director, and got to figure out how we do the baptisms and the groups. It was all new and wet cement, and we just were like, we don't know, like, God, tell us what to do here, and that's what we're gonna do. It was very fun and wild west, and growing so quickly. It was hard to stay ahead of the needs. But I love Pastor Job's commitment to keeping it gospel-centric. Doctrine was sound. Care for your people. If you just keep the main thing, God's going to take care of the rest. And so that's what we did. So it was great. So I did that for a while. And then I did HR for a while there, which again, I'm like, okay, God, you're funny. I see what you did there.
Right.
And that was great fun. And I love our staff.
Though, in some ways, like being back at a church and going, okay, so this is okay.
It was only the Lord. I say to people sometimes, look back at your resume, look back at your life, and you'll be shocked to realize how many things, nothing is random. The Lord does everything on purpose. And whether it's a hard thing, a great thing, something in between, he's going to use that if you'll just say, I'm yours, right? Like, what do you want to do with me? And so that was really a lot of fun.
I love that. I had the opportunity to design a course for college. And it was a course that was to help, every freshman was going to be required to take this course coming into this. It was Christian University. And so they wanted to have a course created for students to kind of do what you're saying. Like, we want to get these kids to a place where when they're declaring a major, there's a reason they're declaring a major, not just coming into college and declaring business because business was business, or education because education was education. And so I had the opportunity to build out a course. And so it was a lot of assessments and spiritual gift assessments and personality assessments and strength, all the stuff. But one of the things that we added to it was a life map. And the point of it, we would tell the students, was I need you to go back, however you do it visually. You had to present it to the class, and you had to show us all the things in your life that have gotten you to this place, and then draw a conclusion from it. And they were like, what kind of a conclusion am I going to draw from it? And inevitably, every student that has taken this course and done their life map, their, analogy at the end of it is, God has been with me every single step. And when you lay it out on paper like that, you see
it's amazing.
The difficulties and the joys. And it's, my dad was in the military and we moved 100 times and it was really hard. And then you get to the end and you go, but I have connections all over the world. And there's this positive thing that comes out of even the difficulties. And when you see that map, I think that gives you...
It's what we said a few weeks ago about the 4 to 1.
4 to 1.
Right? I mean, there's 4 positive things to every 1 negative thing. And when you do map it out, I think you see that and you see, I cannot believe God used that. Like, God is funny.
Right.
I cannot believe.
He has a plan.
And perseverance, right? We're talking about perseverance. You look at a life map, whether you're an 18-year-old kid that's starting college and your map's not very long, or whether we just had Howard Dayton at Life Work, who's 92, and we just flew him in, and he's still like, as long as I have breath, there is something left to do. If you mapped out his 92 years,
oh my gosh,
no doubt there's perseverance in that, right? The highs and the lows, the even boring parts where you're like, I'm just doing kids, or whatever. I mean, we get those places where you're like, there's got to be more. And I think we go thinking again.
I think.
Yeah. You know, that's the
I respect
perseverance.
your thinking.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
want
you.
you to know
Thank
that
you.
when you say that, I'm
thinking
like,
is good.
oh, I
Thank
should
you.
She's
listen
thinking
harder.
again.
That's right. We're leaning in.
Oh,
Jamie's
I
thinking,
really
that's
want to
not
know
good.
what
I
we're
love it.
thinking.
No, that's a great, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that that's absolutely true. And it's really a trust issue. When things make no sense, do I trust? And do I trust? And that's what enables you to persevere is, I don't understand it and I would not have chosen this, but I'm trusting that you do. And I mean, look at Jesus. Like, we look at his life and we think, I love how authentic he is when there's times that are amazing with his followers and his family. And then there's other times he's like, Lord, I don't want to do this. Take
Right.
this
This
cup from me.
hurts.
Like,
Right.
this is perseverance to say you're in it for all of it. And
Well, and how many times do you think he said, these people are idiots?
oh my God.
Right? I mean,
Like, do I have to say this again?
Right, like,
How many times he said, boy, if only I had the Shunammite Woman.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Better than me.
She got it the first time.
Right.
Get rid of Peter and Paul. Like, I just want the Shunammite Woman.
Give me some wisdom
Oh
here.
my gosh, so true, so true.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
That's
wrap
So that,
up.
yeah, so that was it. So
Did
it was
that.
great. Did that, and then the Lord. I was on staff for 5 years. Ended up, and I was privileged to be able to serve on the executive team, which was such an amazing.
Only
It's kind of like a
female.
job. I'm sorry.
You were the only female, weren't
I was
you?
the only female,
Yeah, good
which is
girl.
awesome. I love to work with men. They're different than female leaders, but they're direct. They have different leadership style, but
a lot to learn
You've
from
got to.
men.
There's a lot to learn.
They can learn from us, but there's a lot to
whoever
learn.
you work with, there's a lot to learn. So
Yeah.
I had a great experience with that. And then the last little stint, I did some leadership development for our staff, and then the Lord really, December 7th, 7 a.m., woke me up and said, I'm going to close this season now. And it was really bittersweet. And like most things are, like sometimes you're in the frying pan and you can hardly wait to jump out. But I think more often than not, when you're in a season where God has you, when he does say it's time to go sow another field, it's bittersweet because you loved parts of that field. Parts of that field you'd be happy to leave.
Right.
But even understanding that that's part of it, you know, are you willing to trust that, okay, his timing is correct? And you've got to hear him. You've got to position yourself not to be so consumed with the noise and the business of the world to actually hear him say it's time to leave. So I
And trust in that.
and trust in that, especially if it's an unknown, because I'm like, I have no idea. I wish he would have given me the next thing because it would have made it easier.
Right.
But he didn't. So March 2021, I resigned and I thought, okay, God, what are we going to do next? I was kind of excited. I'm like, and he's like, we're going to take a year off. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never taken more than 6 weeks off in my life. I don't want to take a year off, but I heard what he said, so I could either obey or not. So I took a year off and it was good. I didn't realize how tired I was. But at the same time, it was hard because I found a lot of my identity in what I did. So it was a good sanctification process in that. And then at the end of the year, I persevered for a year on.
Through it.
I heard what you said. I'm in it.
persevere.
Persevere. And then at the end of that year, my sweet mother-in-law was diagnosed with leukemia. So then I'm like, oh gosh, Lord, thank you for that, because I wouldn't have had the energy or ability or capacity to care for her had I not obeyed.
You got rested before that.
I got
which was
rested
very
because it was a really
Yeah.
long next year, and she passed and went to be with Jesus in September 2022. And so God's, again, timing's perfect. Persevere with what he's telling you to do, even though you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yes.
And then I thought, okay, I was a little almost leery. I'm like, okay, are
Now
we
what?
done now?
Right,
Like,
have I
can we-
rested enough?
Yeah, I rested enough. What are you going to say next?
Can I go to work?
And then he was so sweet in January of like 2020. He's like, downloaded. Okay, I want you to provide retreats for kingdom-minded female executives. And I thought it was hysterical because I thought that's ridiculous. Surely someone's doing this. What are you talking about? So I spent the next 2 weeks trying to find it as the Lord waits and laughs like, okay, well, good luck with that. None of it was out there that I could find. A lot of great stuff for women, great conferences, great retreats, all that, but nothing for kingdom-minded female executives. So I launched Flourish Executive Retreats, and that is a space for kingdom-minded female executives to rest, refuel, and refocus so they can flourish in their faithfulness and fulfill their calling. Because what my experience had been and I've seen is flourishing is different than surviving. And as female executives who are managing great responsibility at work and at home, it can be really hard to figure out, how do I flourish and just not survive? But the Lord really wants us to have an abundant life. And how do we do that? Because my generation was the first one to work, have a lot of dual income. So I don't have somebody 20 years older I can call and say, how did you do that without losing your mind and losing your testimony? I don't want, 3 glasses of wine to turn into 4, or like, I don't want all the things that women get snagged with. Women can burn out and fly into the wall, but it's not the fireball like men. So half the time, people don't even know you're dying on vine. So where is there a place where we can go to refuel? And the truth of the matter is, nobody's checking on high capacity female executives, because you're taking care of everyone else. And praise God, we love to do that. We love to take care of our family and marriage and besties and elderly parents and kids. But we can kind of sneak under the radar when we're not doing well. And I have actually been at a point sometimes where when somebody says, how are you? Like literally, like a true, how are you? That I've just thought, I can't answer that question because I'm going to start to cry. I'm going to lose
I'm going to lose the whole thing
I gotta
here.
keep
I've got to
together.
hold it all together.
I got to keep it together. People count on me. They depend on me.
Because people count on me, right? There's so many hats that I wear, and there isn't a letdown space. And I think we are the first generation that's doing this, where we're not, we don't have people to go to that said, how did you, sit in a meeting and have hot flashes? Right? And just like be totally embarrassed that you're sweating all of a sudden while somebody's doing a PowerPoint.
How'd you get through that?
Nobody talked about that kind of stuff.
And I'm excited, I'm grateful that we're the first generation that get to do this. Like, I would have hated being my grandmother's generation, where I didn't get to use my mind and use my leadership giftings the Lord's blessed me with. But it is
we're not done, which is so cool. Like, I think generations before us got to our age and we're like, okay, I'm sort of done. Right. Even like you talked about the lunch today that you went to, it was like, well, I don't know what to do now. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have a list of 50,000 things that I still have to do. Right. And so it's a different generational discussion, I think.
And it's hard to find other people like you if you're a female that's a kingdom-minded executive, because we all have a bazillion tons of friends, and we love our family and friends, but not many are executive leaders who understand the world we live in. Like, I love my bestie, I love our sister, I love but some of them, and you need to do what God calls you to do. Pastor Joby's awesome about saying, if God calls you to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, that's what you need to do. That's your high and holy calling. But if he doesn't call you to be full-time in the workplace, that's what you need to do. And it's hard to find other women that are doing that, because you're not the majority. So that's the other thing I realized. It's been amazing to watch other women connect. Like, you get my life. You know what it's like to be the CEO at home and an executive level leader at work. And how are you doing that? And there's just a real kinship and a camaraderie in that. So
I thought my retreat was great for that. Like, there's just an immediate connection, because you don't have to use words to say, this is where I am. Right? Like, there's so many people that I can't talk about it without sounding like I'm being a martyr. And when I went to your retreat, it was just like, it was just great, because everybody got it at the same time.
You're living the same life, only just in different places.
It's been interesting with my kids as they're getting a little bit older, especially my daughter. She's now 23, almost 24. She's got her first real job. And all of it, her and my son both, all of a sudden, they'll say things to me, and they'll be like, literally, my son will be like, you run some businesses. It's like,
I love that.
Honey, like, where have you been for the last 25 years?
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
But it was like, you could see him go, I just didn't realize it. And then my daughter, where her job is
which is a testament to you, in that wasn't always the priority.
They didn't notice it, thankfully. But then all of a sudden to be like, oh my gosh,
like mom's got something going on.
Woman, like, they'll call now and be like, hey, Mom, can you help? Like, in a business sense, which they miss. Or my daughter, interestingly enough, is working for a company in Birmingham. I mean, I don't know anybody in Birmingham, right? And she calls the other day and she's like, they want to meet you and Dad. And I was like, why do they want to meet me and Dad. And she was like, they're all about the Church of 1122. Like, they literally had a full-on meeting today about how can we get engaged with 1122. And she is like an intro, been there 6 months, little girl. And she's like, my dad works there. And they were like, and they were just like, wait, what? And she's like, Mom, I like puffed up. And I was like, yes, my dad.
He does.
So she said,
That's
I
so
felt
great.
so big.
Oh.
2 minutes later, she said something about life work leadership because they were talking about Jacksonville, and she said something about life work leadership, and they mentioned Glenn Henderson,
Oh, no
who's
kidding.
the chairman of the board at LifeWork, and he was the chairman of their board. And they turned to sweet little Bailey and they went, wait, who are you? You know, I mean, and she was just like, and I puffed up again, and I was like, my mom, you know, and then
so cute. I
literally
love it.
they're starting a coffee shop
Oh.
inside their big company, and they were around the table. She said,
Okay.
Mom, I swear, same meeting. And they were like, do you think we could do a coffee shop that's like Christian and we hire
That's
people?
unbelievable.
And she was like, my mom. And she was like, the guy literally was sitting there and said, what's the coffee shop? And she said, Cup of Joe. And he's like, I've been there. And she was like, Mom, you and Dad are so,
You're
but it
famous.
was so
You're famous.
fun to see that your kids begin to realize that. Because
Such
like
a
you
respect,
said,
right? Yeah.
in this sphere of executive women, Christians specifically, she was in a room with all men again.
Right.
You know, I look at when I got to LifeWork, all
All
men,
men.
still all men.
Yes,
Every
for sure.
executive director of every LifeWork city is still a man.
Sure.
I sit on the board at Trinity, still all men,
Yeah.
which is great. Like we
Right.
said, I can
Right.
learn so much from them.
For sure.
However, they don't fully get what I'm doing.
Sure.
Mhm.
Clearly, my kids didn't get what I was
Right,
doing all
right.
these years, because now they're like, wait, what?
Absolutely.
My husband doesn't really get it.
Yeah.
My best friend is not, she's a stay-at-home mom. Again, love her
Doesn't
to
get your
death,
world.
but doesn't get my world. My mom stayed at home. She doesn't get my world. So there isn't a lot of people around me that get that.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a niche that you're hitting. That
Yes.
there's not as many of us as there should be, or we're
Right.
just not finding each other.
Right.
We're out there.
I think they're just separated.
Yeah.
But because we're all going and doing and managing our lives, we don't have time to kind of hang out and look for more friends.
Yeah, I mean, why are you looking for a friend that it's like-minded?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, you
Right.
sort of have to
Right.
fall into something with them that you're doing
Right.
together. And a friend of mine,
figure
when
that
our
out.
kids were in pre-K, she was a chief administrative officer at Mayo, and we our kids,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, you don't do the cookies either.
Right.
Like, we can be friends.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
but I think because we're not in search of them, because we're so
Right.
we're
We're
so
so busy. And
trying.
yeah.
It's we're not busy.
Yeah,
all
well,
is well.
right.
But all is well.
Pretty packed.
But we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's packed in that
Well,
that we're not looking for friends to have a chance to talk to and say, I need you to identify with me on this.
right.
And
And
it's
I
so
think-
rewarding to go to a retreat and
Thank you.
get that.
Yeah,
and the
that's-
downtime to do it.
That's one of the things. It's so hard to make time for that because the other side of it is men are actually better at this than women
For
are.
sure.
They actually are better at prioritizing rest, renewal, refuel, connecting. And I
Which
hear
is
my
weird, 'cause
female.
they don't make friends very
They
well.
don't, but I hear my female friends say, "Hey, if I had a wife, I could do that too." So I get that.
Oh, that's good.
However,
Repeat that.
However, I do think we got to take a page out of their playbook. So we
Yeah.
can just keep saying that. But at the end of the day, my conviction years ago was, hey, the verse that talks about the second greatest commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And I'm like, I'm crushing it loving my neighbor. I love my people. I love my employees. I love my neighbors, my friends, my family, my sister. Loving everybody, get an A in that column. And then literally I remember thinking, oh my gosh, as yourself. And I'm like, I have a big fat F in that column because I'm crushing it over here. And it's not even a verse that is open to interpretation. It's not one of the ones that's hard to understand.
We can't say
can't
I
look at the
think.
Greek and be like, well, the
Greek.
I think that means not as
Oh my
yourself.
So truthfully, I realized, and before I started this retreat, I'm like, I never took a week for me. Number one, I didn't feel like I could spend that money on myself, but I think, or take the time, or is it really just going to be so much work on the front end, it's not worth it on the back end. By the time I come back to the emails
Yes.
and the family,
Like,
and
am I going to be exhausted for the
Right.
first 4 days? So it's like, why
Right.
bother?
So it's kind of the enemy's way of saying, yeah, you just keep doing what you're doing and don't love yourself and see how that works for you.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting. I think the men actually, a lot of them who have had wives that have gone have said, you must do this every year. This is your
I love that.
time.
I love that.
Because you're coming back a better version of who God has called you to be.
You're different. I think
You're
different.
And the biggest obstacle truly is us.
Yeah.
It's us saying, I'm going to trust that the Lord is going to take care of my family and my workplace if I step out for a week. And that's really hard to do, but
it is.
That's
I told Tammy when we were talking about it, knowing that I had done a 5-day, 6-day silent retreat.
Right.
So
Years
I sort
ago.
of knew what I was getting into, but I was able to like really plan, like, Lord, we need to talk about this, and this. And and having even an agenda, he just dumped on me.
Yeah.
But gave me, so I got to rest all this time because the dumping took an hour and a half in my Remarkable. And I was like, look at that. I can actually.
Now we can just hang out with Jesus.
Right. And it was so, I think the prayerful part and you praying over people and you saying, what are you trying to get out of this at the beginning is so valuable to have. I don't know what you even call you when you're there, but you're like mothering everybody.
Facilitator.
You're the Shunammite
You're the woman persevering all of us
Shuma.
through.
But it's so,
You're my Shuma.
you can't make up the example. Like when you make time to meet with the Lord, it will blow your mind.
Yeah.
And not in a scary way, but in a like, oh my gosh.
Right.
It is going to be okay. It is well with my soul because I've been able to cry and talk and scream or whatever I need to do with him. He is aware. And it takes me, when I have a day with God, an hour to 2 just to talk and get it all out before I can listen.
Yes.
Because I have time with him in the morning, but I really need some extended time to say, and this is what I'm really upset about. And then dial down to, actually, there's hurt underneath that. And that's like, it takes a minute for me to talk it all out and then have him say, okay, it's like sorting laundry on a table. All right, let's sort through some of this.
Yeah.
Let's see what this really
I did that, like, I'm scared of this. Like, I actually got to that part because I had sort of pre-thought of, I was like, oh no, we're not doing that. No, I'm not going.
That's off limits.
Yeah, we're not going there. And so it was really great to have that time to process all of that.
He's tender. He's tender, and
sure.
he will not.
For sure.
He's not a guy. He's not going to shove you up in the corner.
Yeah.
He's just going to woo you. And when you say yes to time with him, it's I don't know how to put it into words.
So good.
Yeah.
So he's awesome.
So if someone wants to do a retreat,
where do they go? On the bottom.
I want to put it at the bottom, but I want to practice.
No.
I watched a podcast this week, and they looked, and they were like, "Go to www."
Oh, and it came across the bottom.
And so we now have Jaxified, who's going to
Jax-
put this
Oh,
across
very-
the bottom.
yes, Jax
So
helped us.
as you say it, he's
Okay.
going to end up putting confetti and like all
Oh,
kinds
how
of
fun
fun
is
stuff
that?
that says.
Mike, he's awesome.
So
I love that.
Jaxified.
Yeah.
So, but we have to go.
So
to
you have to say it. So like
Okay.
we go to.
So you can go to www.flourishexecutiveretreats.com.
And if you do go, you get this very beautiful
you get a journal.
notebook. This
is last year's.
Flourish on it.
Yes.
Made by
The
Blair,
Shunammite
I
Woman.
believe.
Yes, made by Blair. And the Shunammite
know?
Woman's in there.
I know she is.
Picture of
I
her.
have mine.
But every year, here's another crazy. We do study the Bible in the morning because it's great to rest. All you do is you have free time every afternoon, rest, relax, binge watch TV, take a nap, go out, whatever you want to do to refuel, spend time with the Lord. But in the morning, we do hit the Bible. And every year, I just say, God, what do you want women like us to know and to hear? And so every year the content changes, and this was really fun because this past year we did just the Shema, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I asked the Lord, okay, we've all kind of heard that before. And he says, yeah, but I want you to talk about the executive women, the kingdom-minded female women, and let's take an example of each of those things, and let's study those as women that are executives, which I'd never
Every
studied
day,
the Shema
yeah, we did
that
one.
way.
Yeah.
So that was fun, one a day. And then this year we're actually, it's a cycle of deliverance.
Ah.
And I've never realized it, but there's actually a pattern to how God comes in and delivers all of us from where we are to where he wants us to be.
Ah.
So that's been a
So
really
you can
fun
be
one.
fruitful.
You can be fruitful. Exactly. So yeah, and on the website, if you go to, there's a video on the front that'll show you the locations and pictures of that and explain a little about what Flourish is. And
you only have 2 more left this year.
we only have 2 more left, and we're going to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yes, you're signed up, so I'm so excited. And
I'm still terrible. I haven't done it. It's so hard. I mean, honestly, I can feel
I
myself
know.
right now.
Yeah,
getting
I know.
hot. I have a hot flash.
don't worry.
Stressing me out.
Don't worry.
I'm having a hot flash about it.
Here's what I tell
I'm
everybody.
so bad at it.
Don't worry.
Oh.
Pray. It's hard. Pray about it. Just ask the Lord, first of all, is this something you want me to do? Sometimes it's the right season,
Yep.
sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something he wants you to do, he will take care of it. The biggest obstacle is, can I surrender whatever I'm so worried about that I wouldn't go?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, okay, but I don't know how the finances are going to work, the time off is going to work, the family's going to, God's going to help you with all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your retreat that you just did, like on steroids, right? Because you would be able to cover everything that you wanted to, and
My
you have
excuse
to stop.
is the timing of them because you
Spring
do
and
one
fall.
in the fall, and that's right before we launch LifeWork. So it
Yes.
is literally
But given our
Right.
strategic planning, is it
I know.
true
It's spring,
that
I know.
you have to be
well,
the one
spring
that
is graduation.
launches?
This time it was literally the week of graduation. So it's
Yeah.
like I have 2 big events. It's the fall and the spring,
Yeah.
and it was like the weeks of
For sure.
your retreats. And
And
so
that was a no for you.
that's an excuse. That's
No.
an excuse because no doubt I
We're
have
gonna
an amazing
persevere,
board,
and you're coming.
Well, here's
One
the
of
good
these
news.
times.
So in November,
I want to.
in November, I launch 2026 dates every November.
Yeah.
And that gives people a chance to
Chance
look
to
ahead and
get-
see. And hey, the timing, I don't think it was right for you and your family. But the bigger obstacle is, if the Lord would have this for me, and you will be like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't want to. Like,
You're
it'll
not
be
allowed
awesome.
to choke on the podcast.
You're not allowed to choke, you sweet
You're
thing.
not allowed to perform CPR.
That's right.
On the podcast.
Persevering.
Oh, no, it might
Someone-
get our viewership up.
Persevering.
I know.
We have to survive.
You're
Persevered.
This girl shot me to the rescue. It was great. So the dates are on the website for this year, and and again, the other thing for me is people all the time will say, well, why aren't you pushing this out to social media? But to me, I really am looking for kingdom-minded women, not corporate sharks and not church ladies. So I'm very protective. If you're really a woman who's just not getting it right every day, but really all in pursuing Jesus, I would love for you to pray about that.
Can't do that.
I know.
All is not well. Retreat.
Well, and I mean,
Anyway, no.
genuinely, I'm not saying we have talked about it.
We have
I know
Yeah.
it's coming. I know
Yeah.
it's me. It's a me thing. It's not a you thing. It's
Oh,
a me
good.
and God thing. But I want our 3 listeners to hear that in the sense of if they're hearing you say this, I don't want them to feel bad that they're like, well, I'm just not sure, because here I am.
Sure.
Yeah,
Supposedly have walked with the Lord most of my life, have
Right.
been an executive most of my life, have walked with people who have done it, and
Unless
I'm
you
still
ask your kids
right
about the executive
Right.
part.
Like,
That's
you're an
like-
executive?
Yeah.
Really? You're a mom.
That's a,
Not just
Who
a mom,
knew?
but
Right.
the shocking.
why do you get to go to an executive
Yeah.
retreat?
It's so funny to see them grow up and see that.
But it is true.
But it
I
is
just
a
want
hard-
the listeners to
From
know.
a
It's a very
It's-
real thing.
It's tough.
It
It's
is.
tough, no
It
question.
is.
And we've never done this before.
Right.
Before I launched this company, full disclosure, I had not taken a week for myself.
Right. Yes.
Why I took a day a month. It was a day with God a month. I love that. But now I'm like, well, why haven't I done that? I've watched men in my life do that to their benefit. And again, I do believe I had to just challenge myself. If out of 52 weeks, you can't take one off and trust that the Lord's going to take care of you, something's gone horribly wrong with you, Kim
Right.
Wygle. So
Right.
he will help too.
How do
He
you
knows
do
where
it?
you're at.
So you do all this for everybody else. When do you take your retreat?
Ooh, good question.
Great question. Can I tell you, I take a retreat. I go away with Jesus for a whole week. And I go down to South Florida because that's where I'm from.
Mhm.
Hot, humid, and parrots and palm trees and all the wonderful things down there. And I actually hole up and I actually get to write the content, which to me is what I'd rather do more than anything else on the planet, because it's just me and Jesus holed up for a week. And it's really funny. I like order room service, and I think by the third day they're really calling them probably wellness checks. If I could overhear on the kitchen, like the lady in room 624 has not come out for 3 days.
Yeah, where is she? Yeah.
But yeah, that's my
good.
refill
That's good.
time.
That's
And
good.
it's just me and Jesus, and we talk about everything and anything. And I just come from, I'm like, I have no idea what you're going to want to say. So what are you going to want to say? So that's my refuel.
Very good.
I love it.
Okay, well,
It's a little scary.
It
I mean,
is.
to think of a whole week, like you were giving you can just do nothing or binge watch her, and I'm like, again.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Or
You did
just
hot
not-
flashes. What do you mean? I could just do anything and not feel guilty about the fact that I binge watched, or whatever.
Okay, sure.
So,
and not,
Yeah. And it does take 24 to 48 hours for most ladies to be present there. But I will tell you, at the end of the 48 hours, the phones, you don't know where you left your phone. You're having an hour-long conversation with somebody who's just like you. You've had a nap in the afternoon, or you're sleeping in a little longer every day because your body's actually relaxing as your mind unwinds. It's really cool to watch the Lord just bless you with a restorative time.
well, and like our group, like went and bought wine and they made
Oh, yeah.
margaritas and
Hang out by the pool.
Then there was a bowling night. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was like
It's fun stuff
fun.
too.
It was fun and laughing and just that sort of belly laughing that you
and
don't
no
get to do.
makeup and sweats and like
right.
hang out at the dinner table and play games. Like
We bought more clothes off Amazon because somebody would come
would
down
share.
and like, where did you get that? I got home and I had like 3 packages of like these little sweaty
very
things
true.
for like $25. It was
That's
great. It was great.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Well,
anyway.
we encourage our
Yes.
listeners to
Yes.
persevere through and
Yes.
go on one of these retreats. Kim, you are a legend.
Yes,
Oh,
we
am
are
I-
grateful. No,
Thank you guys
We're
for having
happy
me.
that
This
you
was
can
so
come.
fun. Yes, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. We're glad that you were here.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having me.
for joining us.
It's been great.